Welcome to the Hidden Truths, where the most intimate mysteries come to life. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you never miss a secret. Now, let's pull back the veil. I had always prided myself on being calm, collected. Years in the military had taught me to control my emotions, to think clearly under pressure. I was good at keeping my cool, especially when things got tough. That was my job, right? To be the one everyone could count on. I had my shit together. I had to. But nothing had prepared me for what I was about to face. The day I found out about Sarah, my wife of 6 years, and Jake, my brother-in-law, was the day everything I had worked for, everything I believed in, came crashing down. I came home early that day. It was a surprise visit, not that I ever had a reason to doubt Sarah. She'd always been the perfect wife. At least, that's what I told myself. It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon. I was looking forward to spending time with her, just the two of us. But the moment I stepped through the door, I knew something was wrong. The house was too quiet. It felt off. Sarah's car was in the driveway, but when I called out to her, there was no answer. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe she was upstairs, or maybe she had stepped outside. But as I moved through the house, I heard something. A noise. Low at first, then clearer. It was the unmistakable sound of someone crying. I followed the sound to the bedroom. When I opened the door, I froze. There they were, Sarah and Jake, entangled in a mess of sheets. It wasn't just the shock of seeing them together that hit me. It was the realization that I had been blind. I had been married to her for years, trusting her with everything I had, and this is what I found. I didn't say a word at first. I couldn't. My mind was racing, processing what I was seeing. But as they scrambled to cover themselves, as they panicked and tried to put on their clothes, the anger hit me like a wave. Jake! Sarah! I said, my voice a low growl. What the hell is this? They both froze. Sarah looked at me, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. Jake's face, too, was a mixture of shame and panic. But there was no remorse in his eyes. Not like I thought there should be. What is this? I asked again, my voice growing colder. You thought you could get away with this? With my wife? Sarah scrambled to speak, her words tumbling out in a rush. I never meant for this to happen. It just happened, James. I was lonely. We've been so distant for so long, and Jake, Her voice trailed off, and I could see the tears beginning to spill down her cheeks. But I wasn't listening anymore. I wasn't interested in her excuses. I didn't care about the reasons. All I saw in front of me were the two people who had destroyed everything I had ever worked for. Jake tried to speak, but I cut him off. Shut up, Jake, I said, my voice dripping with venom. You've taken everything from me. You've destroyed my life. And now you're going to pay for it. I didn't say another word. I walked out of the room, leaving them behind in the chaos they had created. I went straight to the garage, my heart pounding in my chest. I had to think. I had to do something. I couldn't just let this go. The next few days were a blur. Sarah and Jake tried to reach out to me, tried to apologize, but I didn't want to hear it. I couldn't. What they had done to me was unforgivable. And I knew that I couldn't let them get away with it. Not this time. I started putting my plan together. I knew that I wasn't just going to walk away from this. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life and walk away with no consequences. I had always been a man of action, a soldier. But this time, I wasn't going to fight with guns or fists. This time, I was going to make them feel the same betrayal that I had felt. I started with Jake. I knew that he had a career, a reputation that he'd worked hard to build. And I was going to tear it all down. One small step at a time. I reached out to some of his colleagues, people I had known from the old days. I didn't have to do much. A few quiet words, a few anonymous tips, and I had people questioning his behavior, his work ethic. Nothing big. Just enough to make him uncomfortable. Just enough to make him think twice about every decision he made. But it wasn't just his career. I had to make sure he felt the sting of what he had done. The guilt. The shame. The isolation. I needed him to feel what I had felt when I first walked in on them. And I needed him to understand that there was no escape from the consequences. As for Sarah, that was the harder part. She was my wife. She was the woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted. But she had betrayed me. And now, I had to make her understand that she had lost me, not just emotionally, but completely. I didn't want to hurt her. Not physically. But I wasn't going to let her think she could come back to me, to crawl into my arms, and pretend like nothing had happened. No. I was going to make sure she knew what she had done. I was going to make her realize that her actions had destroyed everything. I took the first step by cutting off all contact. I stopped answering her calls. I blocked her on every platform. I wanted her to feel the absence of my presence in her life. I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose everything, to realize that she had burned the only bridge that had ever meant anything. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions, but I kept my cool. I had a goal now. I wasn't just reeling from the shock anymore. I was taking control of my life. I was the one making the decisions now. I wasn't going to let Sarah or Jake dictate my future. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. But neither would I. One evening, as I was sitting at home, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Please, James. I made a mistake. I love you. Let's talk. I can't lose you." I stared at the message for a long moment. And then, without hesitation, I replied, "It's too late. You've lost me." I hit send. When I hit send on that message, telling Sarah she had lost me, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. It was the first real move I had made in this entire nightmare. I had told her the truth. I had put the final nail in the coffin of what had once been my marriage. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The days that followed felt like a ticking clock, the weight of what was to come hanging in the air. I wasn't just going to walk away from this, not after everything they had done to me. Sarah had made her choice, and now it was my turn to make mine. I wasn't going to sit idly by and let her go unpunished. No, she needed to feel the pain, the betrayal, the way I felt when I walked in on her with Jake. And Jake, he was going to pay too. I'd already started making moves behind the scenes. Little things. Quiet things. Jake's reputation, his career, everything he had built, I was going to tear it apart. It started with a phone call to an old business associate, someone who had once had issues with Jake at work. A few carefully planted rumors, a whisper of inappropriate behavior, and Jake's perfect world would begin to crack. He was a man who thought he was untouchable, but I was going to show him just how fragile everything he had was. The next day, I made sure to make it public. I leaked information about Jake's professional misconduct, nothing too overt, just enough for his coworkers to question him. The accusations were vague enough to make people wonder. And it worked. His work life began to deteriorate slowly, steadily. The look of concern on his face when I saw him in the hallways at work told me everything I needed to know. He was terrified. I wasn't going to stop there, though. This wasn't about a job. This wasn't about just destroying his reputation. This was about making sure Jake understood what it felt like to lose everything. The way I had. To watch everything you've ever worked for burn to the ground. And I was going to make sure he felt it. As for Sarah, I knew that she wouldn't just sit back and let me go without a fight. She had always believed I would forgive her. She had always believed that the bond we shared was strong enough to weather anything. But she had underestimated me. And I wasn't going to let her think she could have it all, without facing the consequences of her actions. I didn't respond to her texts. I didn't pick up her calls. Instead, I made sure to be visible. I made sure she saw me in places where I knew she would be, at the gym, at the local cafe, even at work. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't going to let her think she could walk back into my life like nothing had happened. But it was the night I ran into her at the grocery store that everything came to a head. She stood there, her cart piled high with groceries, as if she had been pretending that everything was fine. She didn't see me at first, and for a moment, I considered just walking past her, ignoring her completely. But I couldn't. I was done pretending. I made my way down the aisle, deliberately walking toward her. When she saw me, her eyes went wide, and she immediately dropped the jar of peanut butter she had been holding. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed in the silent store. "James," she said, her voice shaking. She tried to move toward me, but I stopped her with a look. "Don't come near me," I said, my voice cold, cutting through the silence. "Don't even try." She froze, her face pale. "James, I didn't expect you to." "No, you didn't expect any of this, did you?" I snapped, cutting her off. "You thought I would just forget. That I would let it slide. But you're wrong. You're dead wrong, Sarah." Her eyes filled with tears, and I saw the panic in her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I could fix it, but I can't, and I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it," I said, my voice steady, but full of venom. "You had your chance, Sarah. And you ruined it. You ruined me." "I know," she whispered, her tears falling freely now. "But please, James. I need you. I need your forgiveness. I need to make this right." "Forgiveness?" I asked, laughing bitterly. "You think I'm going to forgive you? After everything? After what you've done?" I shook my head. "You think I'm going to just let you back in, let you destroy everything I've worked for, and then walk away like nothing happened?" "James, please," she said, reaching for me, but I stepped back, away from her touch. "Please, I'm begging you. I can't live with myself knowing I've ruined everything." The tears in her eyes didn't move me anymore. The guilt didn't matter. Nothing she said could take away the pain she had caused me. Nothing she could do would fix the life she had broken. "I'm not interested in your apologies anymore," I said quietly, my eyes narrowing. "You wanted him. You chose him. And now you're going to pay for it. You're going to feel the consequences of what you've done." She opened her mouth to speak, but I turned on my heel, walking away, leaving her standing there in the aisle. I didn't care what she said. I didn't care what she begged for. I was done. The next few weeks were a blur of further actions, the consequences of my revenge starting to snowball. Jake's career continued to unravel. His colleagues stopped trusting him, his position at work became untenable, and I could see it in his eyes every time I passed him in the halls. The man who had once stood tall and confident was now a shell of himself, a man stripped of everything he had worked for. But I wasn't done. I wasn't going to stop until Sarah understood the full extent of her betrayal. One final move. One final stroke of vengeance. I made sure to make the details of her affair public. Slowly, carefully, I leaked the information to friends, to colleagues. I made sure that the whispers reached her family, her friends, everyone who had once trusted her. I didn't need to be there to see it happen. I didn't need to watch the fallout. I just needed her to feel the shame, the humiliation, the guilt she had been avoiding. The final day came when I received the call. It was from her father. "James," he said, his voice stern, "I'm not going to ask you why you've done this, because I know you're hurt. But what you've done to Sarah, this is too much. She's broken. And I think you know that." I didn't hesitate. I wasn't going to apologize. I wasn't going to feel bad for what I had done. "You should have thought about that before she made her choice," I said, my voice cold. "She destroyed me. Now I'm making sure she feels the consequences." I hung up the phone, feeling a strange sense of finality. This was it. The point of no return. I didn't care about Sarah anymore. I didn't care about Jake. I had done what I needed to do. They had ruined my life, and now they were going to pay for it. The silence in the weeks following the destruction of Sarah and Jake's lives was deafening. I had done it. I had made them both feel the weight of their actions, and I watched, from the sidelines, as everything they had worked for, everything they thought they had, crumbled beneath the weight of their betrayal. But even as I basked in the satisfaction of what I had done, a nagging feeling crept into the back of my mind. Was I done? Was it over? Did they deserve any more of my time? The answer was simple: no. They didn't deserve anything from me. But as I watched them fight to pick up the shattered pieces of their lives, something inside me whispered that maybe there was still one final act to play. The phone call came one night, just when I thought I had finally put them out of my mind. It was late, around midnight, and I had just come back from a drink with a few colleagues. I had been trying to move on, trying to enjoy the parts of life I still had left after the storm I had created. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway, half expecting it to be a call from work. James? The voice on the other end was hesitant, trembling, familiar. It was Sarah's. I stood still, frozen in my tracks. My heart, which had been calm for weeks, suddenly started to race. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice low, almost detached. I don't know how to start this," she said, and I could hear the sobs in her voice, the desperation. "I know you're angry with me. You have every right to be. But you need to understand, everything that happened, it wasn't what you think. It was a mistake. I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore, and Jake, he made me feel wanted." I rolled my eyes and scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. She was still going to pull this. The classic "I was lost" excuse. The guilt was evident in her voice, but I wasn't interested. I wasn't listening to her apologies anymore. "You think I care about your excuses, Sarah?" I spat into the phone. "You think I'm going to fall for this again? I've been here before. I've heard it all. I'm not asking for your forgiveness," she said, her voice quiet now. "I know I don't deserve it. But please understand I love you. I've always loved you. And I regret what I've done. I can't undo it, but I need you to know that I'm truly sorry. I've lost everything, James." Her words, her regret, everything she was saying, it meant nothing to me anymore. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her to make me feel like the victim. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one who had taken control of my life again. "You don't get to just call me when things go wrong and expect me to fix them," I said, my voice steady, colder than it had ever been. "You've destroyed everything I ever believed in. And I'm done with you. Please, James," she begged. "I know I can never fix what I did, but I can't live with myself knowing you hate me." "I don't hate you, Sarah," I said, surprising even myself with the calmness of my words. "I just don't care anymore. I don't need you in my life. I don't need your guilt or your apologies. You had your chance." The line went silent. I knew what she was feeling. She was desperate. She was losing everything, the man she had betrayed, the family she had built, and now, even her own sense of self-worth. But I wasn't about to play the role of savior for her. "I'm done with you," I repeated, my voice firm, final. "Goodbye, Sarah." And I hung up. The next few days were oddly peaceful. I didn't hear from her again. And strangely, I didn't want to. The truth was, I had taken everything from her, just as she had taken everything from me. She had ruined our marriage. She had betrayed me, humiliated me. And now, the only thing left was to let her feel the weight of her actions. But I wasn't finished. I wasn't done with Jake yet. I knew what he had been through. His life, too, was falling apart. But I wasn't satisfied. He hadn't yet paid the price I had set for him. He had betrayed my trust, destroyed my marriage, and now I was going to make sure he lost everything. I started small, just a whisper here and there. I planted a few rumors about his behavior at work, about his inappropriate relationship with Sarah. It was all carefully calculated, nothing that could lead back to me. But I watched with satisfaction as his reputation began to unravel. His colleagues started distancing themselves from him. His boss started questioning his commitment to the job. The cracks started to show, and it was beautiful. But there was still one more thing I had to do. I went to his apartment. I didn't need to knock. I had gotten the key from a mutual acquaintance who had known Jake's secrets, and I wasn't about to waste time on niceties. I let myself in, the door creaking as it opened. Jake was sitting on the couch, staring at his phone. His face dropped when he saw me standing in the doorway. "James," he said, standing up in surprise. "What the hell are you doing here?" I didn't say a word. I walked into the room, my eyes cold, scanning the apartment. He was still in his work clothes. Clearly, he hadn't been able to shake off the effects of the fallout from everything. "You know what this is, Jake," I said, my voice low and controlled. "This is your reckoning. You thought you could just slip away unscathed. But no one gets away with destroying my life." He tried to back up, but I stepped forward, closing the gap between us. His fear was palpable. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice shaking. "I've lost everything already. You've destroyed my career. You've ruined my life. Please just let it go." But I wasn't letting it go. Not now, not ever. "You think I'm going to let you off easy, Jake?" I sneered. "You took something from me. And now you'll feel the weight of it." With that, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, showing him the evidence, the emails, the pictures, the messages. I had everything I needed to finish what I started. "I'm sending this to everyone, Jake," I said, my voice steady. "Your friends, your family, your coworkers. You're going to feel the same shame I felt when I found out what you did." His face drained of color. "James, no. Please don't. I can't take any more. I'm already at rock bottom. You should have thought about that before you chose to screw my life over," I said, walking toward the door. "Enjoy what little you have left, Jake. It's the last time you'll ever feel like you have control over your life." I walked out, leaving him there, standing in the middle of his broken life. The satisfaction of seeing him crumble was sweet, but there was something else that lingered in the air. I wasn't just punishing him. I was punishing myself, too. The weight of the last few weeks was starting to feel like a storm cloud hovering over me. I had acted with such cold precision, tearing apart Sarah and Jake's lives in ways they could never have predicted, but now, as their worlds began to unravel, I found myself restless. I had never truly considered how much this pursuit of revenge would change me. I had wanted to destroy them. I had wanted them to feel the betrayal I had felt, to suffer the consequences of their actions. But now, as I watched them both spiral in the aftermath, I couldn't ignore the feeling that I was sinking too. It was Jake who contacted me first, surprisingly. I had expected him to hide, to stay out of sight, but he was as desperate as Sarah had been. I received a call from him early one morning. I didn't even need to check the ID. I recognized his voice the moment I picked up. "James," Jake said, his voice thick with fear. Please, let's talk." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Talk? After everything? The man who had destroyed my marriage and my trust was asking for a conversation. "I'm done talking to you, Jake," I replied coldly, pacing around my apartment. "You don't get to beg for mercy after what you did. You don't understand," he said quickly, panic in his tone. "I know I've messed up. I know everything's falling apart. My job, my friends, they all know what happened. Sarah's falling apart, too. I'm losing everything, James. Please just let me try to make this right." "Make it right?" I repeated, almost amused by his audacity. "You think you can make this right? You think you can fix this? What about what you did to me? What about my life, Jake?" There was a long pause, and then I heard him sigh, as if defeated. "I didn't think it would go this far. I didn't think it would ruin everything." "No," I cut him off sharply. "You didn't think, period. But now you will. You'll feel it. You'll see how it feels to have your entire life ripped apart by someone you trusted." I ended the call, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. I had done what I set out to do, but there was still something missing. I wanted more. I wanted to see Sarah's life crash down harder. I wanted to break her, just like she had broken me. 2 days later, I received an email from Sarah. It was short, but there was no mistaking the desperation in her words. James, I don't know how much longer I can take this. I never wanted to hurt you. I've lost everything. Please, let's talk. I'm begging you. I stared at the email for a long time, a cold laugh escaping my lips. After everything she had done, after throwing away our marriage, our future, she was begging? She thought I would just open up the door and welcome her back into my life. She was wrong. I had already made my decision. But there was one last thing I had to do. I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. I was going to make her understand the full scope of her betrayal. I called my lawyer. 2 days later, I walked into Sarah's workplace. She had been a rising star in her company, her career on an upward trajectory. She had been confident, self-assured, the woman who always had everything under control. Now, though, I could see the cracks. I could see the panic in her eyes when I showed up unannounced at her office, when I asked to speak with her in private. The look on her face when I stepped into the conference room was all I needed. She wasn't the confident, composed woman I had married. She was a woman who had been broken by the choices she had made. You have no idea what you've done, do you? I said, my voice calm but steady as I stared at her. You thought this affair would be a temporary thing. You thought it would be a secret. But you were wrong. She didn't say anything. She just looked down at her desk, unable to meet my gaze. I've made sure that everyone knows about you and Jake. Your company. Your colleagues. Everyone who ever trusted you. I continued. You wanted to betray me? Well, now you're going to feel the weight of it. You think your career will survive this? Think again. Her face turned pale. James, please. I never wanted any of this. I was confused, and I. You were confused? I interrupted, my voice low and steady. You were confused when you decided to betray your husband with your own brother? You were confused when you threw away everything we had for some fleeting affair? Don't make excuses, Sarah. You chose this. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Please, she whispered again, her voice breaking. I didn't know what I was doing. I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I love you, James. Please don't destroy me. I leaned forward, my gaze locking onto hers. You destroyed me first. You ruined everything. And now, I'm going to make sure you feel the consequences. She stood there, trembling, but there was nothing she could say to undo the damage. It was done. The final blow had been struck. I left her office without saying another word, the weight of the decision settling over me. I had broken her. I had made sure she would feel the full extent of her betrayal. I wasn't sorry, not anymore. This was what she deserved. The next few days were a blur of calls from lawyers, texts from mutual friends, and whispers in the hallway. Sarah's life began to unravel at a speed I had never anticipated. She was fired from her job, her reputation was tarnished beyond repair, and the social media storm had only just begun. Her apologies, her pleading, her regrets, they meant nothing. I watched from a distance as her world collapsed. She was now the one who couldn't hold it together, who couldn't fix what she had broken. And I was the one who had made sure of it. I wasn't the same man I had been before. I had become something else, something darker. But in that darkness, there was a twisted sense of satisfaction. I had taken back control. I had made her pay for what she did to me. And I was finally free. The weeks following Sarah's fall from grace felt like I was watching a show in slow motion. I knew how this would end, the wreckage of her career, the whispers behind her back, the stares from people who once called her a friend. But as I watched it all unfold, a part of me was still unsettled. I had destroyed her life, sure. But what about mine? Was this revenge really what I needed to feel whole? I was beginning to feel the weight of my choices, but there was no turning back now. The consequences of my actions were spreading like wildfire, and even though I had taken everything from Sarah, I wasn't sure if I had truly gotten what I wanted. One evening, just as I was finishing up some work, I received a message. It was from Jake. The last person I expected to hear from. I didn't even need to read it to know what it was about. James, I've lost everything. Please, just let it go. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far. I know it's too late for forgiveness, but I'm begging you to stop this. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure of how to feel. My first instinct was to laugh, to feel some twisted satisfaction. Jake was a broken man now, his reputation in ruins. He had no job, no friends left. He was a pariah, much like Sarah. But instead, all I felt was emptiness. It wasn't the victory I had expected. It didn't bring me peace. It didn't fill the void that I had tried to fill with vengeance. I deleted the message without replying, but the feeling lingered. The emptiness, the hollow satisfaction of knowing I had destroyed their lives. But where was my peace? Where was the sense of closure I thought I would feel? It was late one night, a few days after I had ignored Jake's message, when I received a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I wasn't in the mood for company. But when I opened it, there stood Sarah. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She looked broken. I didn't care. I didn't want to see her anymore, but I couldn't bring myself to slam the door in her face. Instead, I stepped aside, letting her walk past me into the living room. I couldn't take it anymore, James, she said, her voice raw with emotion. I've lost everything. My career, my friends, my family. It's all gone. You've ruined me. And I don't know what to do anymore. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, watching her as she sobbed quietly. This was the woman who had destroyed me, the one who had shattered everything we built, and now she was the one begging for mercy. Do you think I care? I finally asked, my voice cold. Do you think I feel sorry for you? Do you think I'm going to feel sorry for what I did to you? Her face crumpled as the tears began again. I never meant for it to happen, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know what else to do. I was lost. I couldn't even look at her anymore. She had already apologized 100 times, and it didn't change the fact that I could never trust her again. She had already taken everything from me, and now she was trying to manipulate me into feeling sorry for her. It wasn't going to work. I wasn't going to fall for it. You made your choice, Sarah, I said firmly. And now you're paying the price. You don't get to come back and ask for forgiveness. You don't get to destroy everything I had and expect me to feel sorry for you. She collapsed into the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. I know I can't fix it. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But please, please, James. I need you. I love you. I've always loved you. The words echoed in my mind, but they didn't hit me the way they used to. I wasn't the man I had been when I first found out. I had been angry, hurt, betrayed. But now, I was something else. I was a man who had taken control. I had made her feel the consequences of her actions, and now there was nothing left to say. I took a deep breath, then spoke the words I had been holding inside for so long. Sarah, I said quietly, you've lost me. You had me once. But not anymore. I'm done with you. She didn't speak again. She didn't beg me anymore. She just sat there, broken. And I walked away from her, just as I had walked away from everything we had built together. There was no more love left. There was only the bitter taste of revenge, and it didn't feel good. I left the apartment, went for a walk in the city, trying to clear my mind. The cold night air bit at my skin, and I couldn't help but think about what I had done. It wasn't over. I still had a long road ahead of me, but for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need for revenge. I had already taken it. Now, I was left with the aftermath of my actions, the reality that everything had changed. Days later, I received another message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. It was Sarah's lawyer, and when I opened the message, my stomach sank. James, Sarah is pursuing legal action against you for defamation, emotional distress, and the damage you've caused to her career. We are prepared to take this to court. If you don't settle, we will move forward with a full lawsuit. I read the message multiple times, my mind racing. I had expected this. I had known it would happen. But still, the reality of what I had done hit me hard. I had been so consumed with making her pay that I had forgotten about the legal consequences. But that was the price of betrayal. I had taken everything from her, and now I had to face the fallout of my own actions. I called my lawyer and scheduled an appointment. I didn't care about the legal battle. I didn't care about the court case. What I cared about was one thing: Sarah had destroyed me, and now I had destroyed her. There was no coming back from this. But even in the aftermath, I realized something crucial: revenge doesn't heal you. It doesn't make you feel whole again. It doesn't give you the peace you crave. It just leaves you hollow. Thank you for being with us on the Hidden Truths. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, drop a comment, and be sure to subscribe. The secrets are waiting to be revealed. See you soon.